the flute professor here at Towson University. I'm also a freelance flutist in the Baltimore and Washington, D.C. area, and I perform with many ensembles, including the National Gallery of Art Orchestra and the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, and I play Baroque flute with Pro Music Aurora. Today I'd like to talk to you about a couple of movements from the Chimney of King René, also known as La Cheminée, by the French composer Darius Milhaud. It is one of the most popular works in the woodwind quintet repertoire and also one of my very favorite wind quintets. Chamber music is a wonderful opportunity to play many styles of music without relying on a conductor. A woodwind quintet is a democratic chamber ensemble. All politics aside, this means we decide and sometimes even vote on our interpretations, tempi, and the like. We each play an instrument that can produce a massive assortment of tonal colors. The term most often used is timbre. Our challenge is to blend our distinctive timbres using any instrumental combination of the group in every range and levels of intensity to create incredible music. Our goal is to make our musical decisions which will bring out the composer's intentions within parameters of the appropriate musical style. The first way to do this is to refer to the musical score. Here's the score of the Milhaud. While it's essential for each of us to practice our own parts, of course, we must also be aware of how our parts actually fit together, so it really helps to have a score on hand for reference, especially when we come to the ends of phrases and the ends of movements. Here we can follow along each part, and we have to listen very carefully to blend. The first movement is entitled cortège, which means a procession. In this particular case, the composer, Darius Milhaud, created a majestic musical image of the noble procession of King René, a 15th century French monarch. This movement has many dotted rhythms, which gives it a regal character. It opens with a wonderful oboe solo, which sets the tone of the entire movement. The oboe passes the melody off to the flute in measure 11. My goal is to continue the dotted rhythms in the same style. It's important to subdivide very carefully on the dotted 8th note, 32nd note figure. You could choose to first practice this opening without the 32nd notes in measure 12 and without the graces in measure 13 in order to clearly define the shape of this phrase. Here it is in the plain version. Now here is the same phrase with the addition of the 32nd notes and the double grace notes. I do choose to use the trill fingerings rather than the regular fingerings for these double grace notes. I think it's less awkward, and here it is. Flutists usually use much more vibrato in French music. It just lends itself for that French style, and I do like to use vibrato on all the long notes in this piece until measure 15, which is the concert A when the clarinet comes in on his solo. And so I choose to back off on the vibrato, make it more of a white sound so it will blend when he comes in. And there is sometimes an issue with intonation because the clarinet note can run a tad sharp. So I find a fingering of, rather than just playing a regular A, I will add the G sharp key, which gives it a little softer and a little higher pitch, very, very slight, but it blends so nicely with the clarinet to use that fingering. It's a great fingering for other instances too, you just have to be careful that you don't accidentally put the finger down on the G key. But that is a wonderful way to pass off the melody to the clarinet. In measure 16, I begin playing long quarter notes, which certainly don't look very interesting by themselves. Most of them have long lines over them, but this is when the clarinet has the melody, and I can play those long notes with more shape and more direction and a little bit of vibrato, just to follow the contour of the solo played by the clarinet. So something like this. Let's go on. In measure 20, I take the solo roll again. Here the mood changes from a singing legato style to a shorter, much more punctuated style of articulation. To create more direction, I like to articulate using a single tongue stroke rather than the standard double tongue stroke. This creates much more direction to lead the phrase with those repeated notes. Here is the entrance to measure 20. While I have a more prominent role in measures 20 and 21, I drop back to a more secondary role after that, and I play in the similar style as the solo instrument, so I can support and enhance that phrase. In the solo in measure 38, my goal is to play in the same style of the opening oboe solo. This is not a particularly vibrant range for the flute, so it takes a bit more vibrato to project an earthier tone, which is hopefully more similar to the oboe. Again, be careful with the subdivisions with those dotted notes. You'll notice several 30-second note runs towards the end of this movement. And in fact, they are played with the oboe in unison, so we have to make sure that absolutely every note speaks very clearly. A lot of the fingering patterns are even and fall pretty naturally, but there are others that are a little bit more awkward. I find it easier to learn this in chunking the passage, taking 4 notes with a break, 4 notes and a break, like this. Practicing in this manner of chunking a rather awkward run will help you establish smoother fingering patterns from note to note. The pickups to 4 from the end has another pattern. It's higher, so it's a little bit more awkward. So when you put it all together,